Let me tell you a little bit about my childhood.
Didn't have the best childhood. Parents got divorced when I was 7. My mom's a fucking lunatic, and I didn't see my dad for 10 years. But you know, we ballin'.
But it definitely did help lead to people viewing me as something I am evidently not, which I still sometimes deal with to this day. And we're playing Rayman 2 for this video. It's a good game, get fucked. Some select few of you might remember a video I made a long ass time ago where I talked about Joy-Con drift. And in that video, I mentioned that I almost single-handedly started learning the English language to understand the story of Ocarina of Time on the Nintendo 64 at 4 years old. Now with that piece of information, you might think that I was destined to be some Harvard-looking ass academical child prodigy, winning a Nobel and shit. But no, absolutely not. Matter of fact, I live by myself in a small town making YouTube videos and uploading top 5 Pokemon facts to TikTok. And we're about to hit 20,000 followers, so thank you. Anyhow, the first few years of elementary school went pretty alright, until the 3rd grade. Now, in the 3rd grade, fucking disaster struck, and I was the victim of the worst thing imaginable at the time. I was diagnosed with ADHD. Now you might be thinking that being diagnosed with ADHD isn't that big of a deal. Tons of kids get diagnosed with ADHD, running around on fucking Ritalin and shit. It's a normal thing these days. But this was early to mid 2000, and the last thing you wanted in the mid 2000s was to be diagnosed with ADHD in the 3rd grade. Because ADHD back then was not viewed the same way it is today. Nowadays, when you get diagnosed with ADHD, the common people just think that you have a short attention span, even though it's a lot more complicated than that. But back then, they would pretty much just put you in a small box labeled, "This child is stupid as fuck and has a short temper," which obviously led to parents not wanting their kids to be around me. Not that that really stopped them though, they were too busy whooping my ass and telling me that I was the reason my dad left just to see how pissed off I'd get. Oh, and I can't forget Ginger Cunt. I got that one a lot. That one's a classic these days. But anyways, that's not what I'm here to talk about. What I'm here to talk about is what this dumb shit led to. So obviously, I built up a lot of anxiety and shit, and I didn't want to go to school. Because believe it or not, waking up realizing that some kids are gonna tie your ass to an oak tree doesn't sound that pleasing when you're trying to eat your cereal. So I'd come up with excuses for not going to school and shit, like I would play sick. I had some favorite methods back then. Started off small, saying that my stomach was hurting. If that didn't work, I'd do the good old put a towel in steaming hot water and slap it onto my forehead and hold it there for 45 seconds, giving myself a goddamn 2nd-degree burn to make my mom think I had a fever. I had to give up on the whole fever thing though, because eventually my mom caught on to my bullshit, and every time I would bring it up, it would lead to my mom wanting to shove a thermometer up my ass. Luckily, I realized that I had the power to cough so hard that my throat would make this like crackling noise, like my air pipe was about to burst. So, you know, if all else fails, I would just cough as hard as I can to make my throat sound like I've been smoking for 45 years. Safe to say, I missed a lot of school. Matter of fact, in 6 months, I was out of school 54 days in the 5th grade, which obviously led to the fucking school wanting to have a meeting with me and my parents. They absolutely had all the facts down about what was actually going on. It wasn't so much the fact that I had been gone for 54 days and came from a fucking loony bin. My teacher was more like, well, I see your kid is missing like 78% of school, but his test results are god-awful, so I guess he's just fucking stupid, I guess. We didn't really have the mental health conversation that you see all over social media these days. The only contributing factor to my test results being that bad had to be me just being a fucking dumbass. After that, I was placed in this special class after school. It took me a while to realize what special class actually meant, and that being in a special class wasn't exactly a good thing. But one good thing about elementary school is that we had no grading system. You would just get your test backs and they'll write down what you got right and what you got wrong. So there was no like A's, B's, and shit, or in my case, a big fat F. But moving on to middle school, they did have grades, and I sure as hell made a transition to middle school. Horribly. Now, I didn't really get beaten up and all of that stuff in middle school. People just kind of left me alone, which, if I'm being honest, that's just fucking worse than being beaten up. I mean, in elementary school, when I got beaten up, at least they acknowledged my existence, you know? Didn't really have friends, and I spent the vast majority of the time sitting in a hallway and shit because I was too scared of being around people in class. I remember this one girl, though. I'm pretty sure she was fucking terrified of me. She had her locker right next to the hallway that I used to sit in by myself. Every time she saw me, she would like hurry the fuck up, drop her books and shit, and just get the hell out of there. Better yet, one time I'd been watching these lock picking videos and I was sitting in the hallway trying to pick my little lock, and then she looked at me like I was a serial killer in the making. But like I said, middle school had grades. Now where I come from, the best grade you can get is a 6, and the worst you can get is 1. Now my GPA was a solid 2.6, and the teachers yet again came to the solid conclusion that I'm just fucking stupid, I guess. And it was even worse than in elementary school. I mean, sure, they both thought I was stupid, but at least elementary school gave me a fair shot with the fucking special class. Signed up for German class, got thrown out of German class after 2 months because the German teacher was convinced that there was no way for me to learn German with my limited skill set and social skills. Ironically, I was in a bad mood when she gave me the news and kindly told her to go fuck herself in a very aggressive way. In fluent German, might I add. I flunked pretty much every class there was. Even English, though that was just some pity bullshit. The teacher just didn't like me, and since I was failing damn near everything else, I guess she figured, why the fuck not? And this is where it gets a little fucking interesting. So I finished middle school, barely getting my diploma and shit. Teachers happy as shit because they don't have to deal with my dumbass anymore. And I go to high school. Now, high school was fucking weird. First of all, I spent all summer practicing my social skills and challenging my anxiety. Now, my way of doing that was subpar at best. So what I'd do is I would play video games with my friends, and I would take about 4 to 5 trips to the grocery store every single day just so that I can practice saying hello to whoever was behind the counter. Now, I get to high school and I'm the only dude in my class. And I don't mean that I was alone. I mean that I was the only dude. It was me and 10 girls. I don't know how the fuck that happened. And when a bunch of girls group together in a classroom, you hear some wild shit. But that's the story for another day, dear God. But I was determined to stay in school and finish high school. And as it magically turns out, I'm not fucking stupid. What a fucking miracle! First year alone, my GPA jumped from a 2.6 to a 4.7. Now how did that happen? My parents have no idea. My old teachers sure as hell have no idea. Somehow I could just understand everything that was being said at all times like I was goddamn Albert Einstein. I went from being labeled as a dumbass to finishing top of my class and even started talking to actual human people in person, made friends and shit. Which brings us to today, because for some reason, people still think I'm fucking stupid. Now there's a certain family member, not by blood or anything, he married into this fucking massacre, but he's been there since I was a kid, and he still thinks that I'm a fucking bread box. Now being a bread box is an insult that I only use sincerely in situations where I feel it is appropriate. You've probably never heard it before, but if you own a bread box, throw it out because it's fucking useless and you know damn well that you don't use it to store bread. Bread box is the definition of stupid or useless in my book. And he very obviously thinks that I fall into that category. Now luckily, I actually have fun with it. Him thinking that I'm stupid gives me some weird sense of nostalgia. But luckily, I know today that I'm not fucking stupid and I've grown enough to accept that other people are just going to think that anyways.